Hello and welcome to The Truth Will Not Be Silenced, the show that allows Black people to be seen, to be heard, and to be human. I'm your host, Melissa Woodfork-White. In today's episode, we will talk about personal experiences with racism with Christopher LeBel. We'll discuss the controversial topic of racism and personal experiences of being Black that need to be shared, that allows us to be seen, to be heard, and to be human. As a Black professional woman with over 28 years in the workforce, I have personally experienced not being seen, not being heard, and not being human because of the color of my skin. Sharing our stories allows us to be seen, to be heard, and to be human. There will be a special surprise at the end of the show. Be sure to listen all the way through for the details. Our guest today is Chris LeBel. He is born and raised from Louisiana. He earned a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Monroe and a master's degree in secondary education from Grand Canyon University in Arizona. He is now an educator with 7 years of teaching experience, kindergarten through 9th grade. He also coached junior high and high school basketball for 5 years. Chris LeBel is a former athletic director who built new sports programs for underprivileged students, which allowed them an opportunity to learn a variety of sports. In his free time, he enjoys doing outdoor activities like going to the park and animal farms with his beautiful wife and wonderful daughter. Chris is going to share with us his experience of racism and being Black. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us today.
Oh yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me on. Glad to be a part of this.
Thank you. We're just going to jump right into our first question. How is it different growing up being Black?
Okay, so for me, even though I'm biracial, I learned very quickly at an early age that for some certain folks, not all, but some, that I am Black only, and for them, there's a problem. One example, I learned as early as 4 years old. I remember just like yesterday in preschool, my preschool teacher told me, she was not Black, told me that I was black, white, striped like a zebra. And at the age of 4,
Okay, so let's just be honest. This was
okay.
a white female principal. Is that correct?
Well, she was a teacher, and yes, she
a
was
white teacher.
Yeah, a white
female
teacher. Yeah.
White teacher.
Yes.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you.
No problem. So yeah, so at 4 years old, I'm thinking, that's cool. I'm black, white, striped like a zebra. I'm singing. I even made up a song about it. Came home singing the song. My mom immediately stop singing that. Where you get that from? And so I told her, how I came up with it. And next thing I know, we're at the school. She's going off on a teacher, people looking at us, and I'm kind of upset because not really understanding why, And when I get home, she tells me, don't ever let no one call you an animal, compare you to no animals. And then she explains to me why, how sometimes Black people, white people may refer them to animals, or the racist ones anyway, And I still didn't understand. I'm only 4 years old, but as life went on, I started to slowly understand.
Wow. All I can say is, wow. Your mother was strong. Well, she is, because she's still with us. She's strong
Yes.
and brave. Your mother, once again, is Caucasian and your father is African American. And
Yeah.
so you were raised as a Black man because that's how the world sees you. They don't see you as being biracial. They don't see you that your mother is white and your father is Black. You are seen as a Black man. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And your mother told you that at the tender age of 4.
At 4 years old, yeah, that's when I had to learn this.
So as you shared with us a very traumatic experience from the tender age of 4, what other experiences with racism from your early years to your teen years to your college years, and now you being the established professional that you are?
Yeah, so of course it didn't stop there, unfortunately. Had to experience it all through elementary. up until about maybe sixth grade or so. I was always in fights, had to give certain kids, white kids, these hands, to like make them back off from saying certain stuff, or just, yeah, or, just trying to, start stuff with me. And then, as we got older, I think
Just
word,
because you're Black
yeah,
and
saying
they
that
were white and they're privileged, and that's because of the color of their skin.
exactly, or just saying stuff like how my parents may be nasty because one's Black, one's white, and, just different things, mixing
Oh
together.
my
And
goodness, Chris, this was all the way through sixth grade. You had to fight.
pretty much at least once or twice a year. Well, early
That was
elementary is
surprised
almost
me.
an
I'm like,
everyday thing, huh?
I can't say the movie name and I can't say the character, but all my life I've had to fight.
Yeah, exactly. So, but as I got closer to junior high, like, things kind of started to change a little bit. I think word kind of got around like, don't mess with him or don't say certain things to him. And also, these children, they didn't know any better. And some of them I'm actually still good friends with, and like, we don't have any issues, because, as we know, racism is taught. It's not, you don't just grow up or be born hating somebody. So fortunately, some of those kids, they've changed, so. And then
Oh,
sorry. And then another experience, once I got into high school, I had a white principal. She was new to the school. Um, I was wearing this shirt from my NBA camp that I've been to, and it was a Black NBA player. She pulls me to the side and she's like, talking about how great of a player he was. And if I remember right, I think she even knew him personally or went to school with him or something along those lines. I don't remember right offhand. So I'm thinking, oh, this is a great conversation. Like, we got something to talk about here. And then she tells me, you're going to have to take those cornrows out your head. Because at the
oh,
time
wait.
I had
You were in,
ninth, 10th grade,
so this was high school.
high school,
We've
yeah.
gone from 4 to elementary to high school now.
Yeah. So she tells me I have to take these cornrows out my head, and because it was against school policy. And I'll tell her, yeah, I tell her like, this took 3 hours to do, and it also cost a lot of money. That part I, wasn't truthful about because my sister did it, but still, she didn't know that, And she's like, well, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to take them out. And I'm seeing kids walk around with, like a mohawk with spikes and colored tips,
These are
and
white students, right? White high
yeah,
school students with
white high school students,
mohawks,
yeah.
color tips, and
Yeah, and not only that, just other kids too, having like streaks in their hair, just different things, and
so
so
non-Black students.
yeah, and
Let's just be
so
clear, whether they were white or some other race or ethnic, they were non-Black, and you were specifically singled out as a Black student. Is that correct? Am I following you?
yeah, correct. And so I'm thinking like, what's the dress code for them? I mean, of course I didn't say that to her, but that's what was, going on in my mind. And at this point in my schooling, not getting in trouble was important to me. I'm an athlete, want to be able to play basketball, baseball whenever it comes around. So I was like, okay. So I said, I'll take them out and I'll have them out tomorrow. And she's like, no, come to my office. You're going to take them out now. So yeah. So I missed English class because I took my sweet time taking them out.
So
And
basically, your education was not more important than you taking those cornrows out of your hair. Is that what you're telling us?
pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
My
Wow.
English teacher was upset too, and she was a white lady. She was very upset, that I'm out of class because I'm having to take my hair down.
And I appreciate you saying that, because we're not saying that all white people are racist. We're not saying that all people that are non-Black are racist. We're just sharing our personal experience. And you just identified how your white principal racially discriminated against you because of the cornrows, but then your white teacher was like, no, it's more important for you to be in my class than your hair. And
Exactly.
that is a wonderful, wonderful experience to share. Go.
And yeah, that is very important to note because I've never had any problem with any of my teachers. Most of them have been white. And also my godmother is a white lady, my best friend, my best man at my wedding, is white. So again, yeah, this isn't saying that all white people, we have problems with all white people. It's just some of them.
Mhm.
But yeah, so
The ones who want to make their whiteness known. The
exactly.
ones who want to make our blackness and the color of our skin known. Those are the experiences that we're talking about. We're not putting everybody in one pot and saying it's everybody. No, we're sharing those particular stories that help to shape and mold us to who we are, being reminded of our color of our skin. You demonstrated that in each aspect of your life, how you were reminded from 4 years old to elementary to high school that you are Black.
Exactly. And that same principle, it was another time, students in the classroom giving our teacher a hard time, science class. And she went to the principal because they, just couldn't get control of them. And first thing the principal comes in and she says something to me. Chris, why are you here? You're exempt from the finals because if you had like A or B, you're exempt if you didn't miss any days.
So why did she single you out though?
To this day, I don't, I know, but I don't know. You know what I mean?
You tell us, tell us, because you're sharing not only your experience, but you're sharing your thought process as you experienced it.
Yeah, well, the only thing I can think of is, I was Black and it was a problem. I'm the only Black male in the classroom. My cousin in the classroom too, she's female.
So she automatically assumed the problem that was going on in the classroom was the Black boy, the Black student that was in the classroom.
Yes,
and this happens a lot, Chris. This happens a lot in education across the United States and around the world. But go ahead.
And before I could say anything, the teacher and the students at the same time was like, it's not even him, So I didn't even have to say anything. Like the teacher and my peers around me, letting her know that I wasn't even involved, So yeah, that was pretty much it for that. And then the next year, that principal wasn't there. Don't know what happened.
What do you think happened to that principal? Because from what you've shared with us, and thank you for sharing that, because we know that these are very difficult things to share. And we also know that as our Black culture, our Black heritage, we normally don't share things like that unless there's a platform to share it. And so this is our platform. So what do you think happened to that teacher? Because you just gave us evidence that the white teacher and your white fellow students stood up for you.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened to the principal. Either she found another job because this was like a majority all white school. It's like one of those things, for every 10 sheep you see, there is one Black one. So that's kind of how my school was, or matter of fact, every 100 sheep in that case.
Because you remember, not trying to take away from you, but you remember in my high school graduating class, upper middle white class, suburbia, it was only 10 of us, 10 Black students that graduated in my graduating class of almost a class of 400.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And you could not pick us out of that picture.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying.
So yeah, I'm just assuming either something happened and she was terminated or she just left. One of those two things.
Wow. All I can say is wow, Chris. Wow, wow, wow. I'm blown away because so much happens to us as Black people that we don't talk about. And like you have shared with us, it's something that you hadn't talked about. I don't know if you had mentioned that particular story about the braids. You didn't tell your mama.
No, I didn't tell neither one of my parents. My daddy was crazy. So, and I just remember, what happened when I was 4. Yeah, so I didn't want that to happen because, I didn't know if that meant, if she went up there, if I wouldn't be able to play basketball or, or whatever. So I just kept it quiet. And to this day, my mom doesn't even know. I just kind of forgot about it after all these years,
Well, when this airs, she's going to find out and that phone's going to be ringing and you may just get a look. upside your head.
I know, right?
Because your mama would have went up to that school like when you was 4, and you know she would have set that principal
Oh
straight.
yeah, my mama didn't play no games like with nobody. So
And rightfully so. And rightfully so.
especially when it came to us, you know. So
And do you think that that's because she knows what you're faced up against as
yeah,
as being black, the color of your skin, and she,
yeah,
yeah,
she knows. I mean, you know, I mean, she's married to a black man. She's seen what he's had to go through, you know. That's the story for a different day, but and then her experience as well that kind of goes on to us, you know. So, or her experience of, you know, dating and then marrying a black man, I should say.
wow, these are all gems. Now, you know, I have to ask you, how has racism affected you? Because you've experienced it in every aspect, every age of your life, being reminded that you are a Black man. How has it affected you?
Yeah, so, you know, some things you don't realize how much it has affected you until you let certain things go. You know what I mean? For the longest, I've held on, you know, pain and hate. An example, my mom, you know, she was disowned because she married a black man. Her parents disowned her. Well, started with her dad, I guess, and her dad told her sisters and her mom that if they had anything to do with her, that he would disown them too. And so I remember when I was young, 4, 5, 6 years old, um, they would have to sneak to make telephone calls to her. We would have to sneak to see them at Walmart or Kmart, whatever you know, and it was never long, you know, maybe 30 minutes to an hour. And then one day it just all stopped. Don't know what happened. Phone call stopped. And I remember one time, I think it was like one of the last times actually, I was wanting to talk to my grandma or my aunt, one of them, and I just remember I was crying because I was like, I want to talk to him, you know, and I didn't know why I couldn't. And I just remember hearing my mom say, "No, I'm gonna tell him why." And I think it was my aunt. She was like, "No, don't tell him." She was like, "No, he needs to know." And I think I actually was in second grade when my mama told me this, and so she told me the reason why, or whatever. So for the longest, I I guess, you know, just went through this pain of like, dang, my grandparents, you know, never met my grandfather, met my grandma a couple times, and I'm not accepted by them, even though they're my blood. And I just recently, maybe 2, 3 years ago, like let this go. You know, my aunt, one of my aunts, I've always kept in touch with her or whatever. The other one hadn't heard from since I graduated high school, you know. And my grandma, since my grandfather passed about 4 or 5 years ago, I don't remember how long ago it was. I remember my mama was crying. I'm like, why are you crying? You know, and she's like, well, he's still my father, you know. Um, but anyway, my grandmother recently has um, reached out to me on Instagram or whatever. And she reached out to me at the right time because this is, you know, I've let all this go because had she reached out to me
Before?
before, you know, I might would have given her a piece of my mind, but um, and I told my mom about it and she's like, well, be careful, you know. And I told her, I said, well, you know, she's
Because your
not gonna.
mother doesn't want to see your heart broken again.
Exactly.
That's how mothers are, and you know, because you're a father.
Yeah.
And so you're going to protect your children at all costs, and it doesn't matter how old they are. But what you've let us know is what something that we've known all the time is that racism runs deep.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can tell a Black person to get over when we're experiencing it all the time.
Yeah. And
And so,
especially from your blood, you know. So, but yeah.
so how did you eventually let it go? Because you let us know that a few years ago, you just recently came to terms with everything and you let it go. How did you let that part go, knowing that you were disowned, disinherited because your mother had married a Black man?
Honestly, the only thing I can think of is as you get older, certain priorities change. You know, you mature, your thought process is different, you know. So I just think maybe a little bit of that, just growing older, getting wiser, you know, and just learning to things you can't control. You know, I mean, why dwell on it, you know? So
Do you think it came along the time of jumping the broom and you marrying the love of your life, and then you all having a baby around that time? Because you said it was a few years ago.
yeah, so I married my wife 2019, so that was probably around that time, you know. And my wife has been a big part of helping me let things go, you know. Um, Especially like, you know, when my grandfather died or whatever. I did say something to my grandmother because we have a family Facebook group or
Yeah.
whatever, and she happens to be in it, and she mentioned how he was passing, and I've said something in there that I probably shouldn't have said, you know.
Because you were still speaking from that place of hurt and pain from being racially discriminated. We can't control the color of our skin. We just can't. But
Yeah,
being constantly reminded of it and then being treated differently of it to the point where you are disowned by your own blood because you are Black.
yeah, exactly. So not long after that, you know, my wife, you know, she sees that message and she's like, you know, like, I know it hurts, but we got to start letting some things go. And, you know, and it took a while. I mean, over 30 years, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But I'm at a point now where, you know, like I said, my grandmother's reached out to me, and, you know, she's not going to be my best friend or anything, but I'm willing to have a relationship with her, and, um, you know, and see where we can take it. You know, of course, she's never going to know my life story, but
Mhm. You
again,
are going to be cautious because your mother told you to be cautious. Because
yeah, my mother and my aunt actually,
yeah.
I talked,
Oh, okay. Your mother's sister
yeah,
told you to be
so,
cautious because
mhm,
one minute she could be talking to you, the next minute she won't. Even
yeah.
though, okay, understood.
And if that happens, you know, I'm just, well, it is what it is, you
Mhm.
know, and my heart was in the right place. So
So do you also think, in addition to your wife being that support to that change, and then you being a new dad and all of that, you being able to let that go to be able to not harbor that pain and that anger anymore?
absolutely.
Has it, to this point, has it, how have you grown as a husband, as a father, having let all of that go? As a
Yeah,
professional too.
yeah, letting it go. I mean, you just feel better, you know what I mean? And
Like that weight
uh
lifted off your shoulders
yeah, and then you know, and you're like, dang, like I really let them have all this,
for so
you
long.
know, for so long. And being a father is a big part of that, you know, because you know, I mean, the last thing I want to give my daughter, my wife, the best of me, you know, and I want to give my daughter like everything that I didn't have, family, you know. I mean, I've had family, like thanks to my dad's side. I mean, very loving family, you
And
know.
just so that we let our listeners know, is that you were raised by your dad's side of the family, the Black side of the family. Is that correct? Because your mom's
Yeah,
side of the family, the white side of your heritage, they disowned you.
yeah. So outside of my parents, my dad's side is all I knew, you know. Um, you know, like I said, my aunt, we've talked to her here and there, you know. Then I have a great aunt. She always kept up with us, you know, and she let my grandfather know that before she passed away. She told me we had a long conversation, you know, and she's like, she said, I told your grandfather he was wrong, you know, and then I'm not gonna not talk to your mom, you know. So, um,
Well, that was good. I mean, there was some closure to come about, but for you, that closure came in the releasing of all of that hurt, anger, and pain, which is very good. Which leads us to our next question for our discussion is turning to where we are today as Black people. How has recent events of racial discrimination changed how you act with non-Black people?
okay, so,
And we kind of talked about this before the camera started rolling.
yeah,
But go ahead and share it with our listeners.
Okay, so recent events, well, we have these recent national
You can
events
save them, yeah.
with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so on, just so many. And it's funny because even though I let these things go, I find myself getting mad all over again, whenever I see these things. And, I have certain like white friends that don't understand like why we're so upset. And,
Really?
and yeah, so
Are they open to being educated by you on why?
yeah, I was gonna say that the good thing is, those certain ones, I was able to tell them why, but it's kind of like at the same time, it's like, why do I have to break this down?
But
You
here's the
know,
thing though, Chris, with these events that are constantly taking place, with Black people being killed by law enforcement officers every day, every week, every month, and so forth across the United States of America, which is worldwide news. And so with that being said, that goes to not teaching the true history of the United States of America,
yeah,
And
and
so go ahead.
well, and then and also certain states are taking out certain curriculums. You know what I mean? Because they're trying to hide, what America really is. You know, um, but yeah, so I just try to do my part. One, just for those that don't understand, like not get upset with them because if you don't know, you just don't know. And so I just try to help them understand,
Well, here's the
and
problem that I have.
yeah,
That every time one of our Black people are killed and it's publicized all over the world, that in my employment situations, not one of my employers, not all non-Black, not one of them ever asked me how I was doing, how it affected me. It was like, hush, hush. Now, to me, that's the problem.
yeah,
You want to magnify the color of my skin when you want to demean me, when you want to talk down on me, when you want to ignore my credentials, my educational background, and my experience because I'm Black and you can't see past the color of my skin. But then when something takes place, you let me know that I'm not human and you don't care about me. Once again, going back to our platform for the show, to be seen, to be heard, to be human. Not one of them asked me how I was doing. There was no initiative. There was no nothing taken. It's like they just wanted to go away. How do you think in the world racism is going to go away when it has, oh my gosh, it has been around for over 400 years, even beyond that.
yeah,
And you just think that you not talking about it or you ignoring it and you not asking your Black employees, your Black colleagues, your Black professionals,
yeah,
how they're doing. That says enough. It says enough for me. And so that's why I was asking you when you bring up George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Charles Gardner, Trayvon Martin. I mean, I can just keep rolling. When you bring up all of them and the injustice, the injustice, the injustice, and then you expect us as Black people to put on a show in education, to put on a show in employment, to put on a show in business, to put on a show in politics, to put on a show in every arena that was never meant for us. That affects us.
yeah, exactly. And it has to be addressed in order to solve it. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
And oh my gosh, you hit that right when you said it. You have to get uncomfortable. You have to say it again, I'm sorry.
You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes. History shows us, irregardless of race, creed, color, nationality, history shows us that a conversation can bring about change. And the near fact that a lot of non-Black people are still unwilling to have those conversations is going to continue to manifest racism in every aspect of our lives. And to be so, I do want to be politically correct, even though I'm not political, to be so untouched with the plight of Black people, period, to not even ask, how are you doing, or how does it affect you? Is there any way I can support you through all of this? Is to be insensitive, is to be uncultured. And to me, that's being intentional, because you are intentionally not having those conversations that you just talked about that need to be had. And so, yeah, it affects us. It affects us in every day of our lives. And I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the term code switching.
Oh yeah.
You want to explain that one?
Well, I'll let you explain it.
So code switching, it's what Black people have to do when they're working in non-Black environments, is that we have to mask and we have to put on a show to make those that don't look like us comfortable, while we are being uncomfortable because we're not able to be ourselves because of the color of our skin.
Yo.
And so with that being said, how does sharing your story today help others?
So my story, I can only hope that it will help people like me to understand that they're not alone, you know, and to encourage them to just continue to fight, to just be themselves, to be a better version of themselves, not only, you know, for them, but for their family, for people like us, educators, so that they can better do their jobs at mentoring young students, you know. So that's my hopes for this podcast and my hopes for sharing the story.
Well, thank you so much. It was my pleasure, and I hope that our listeners enjoyed you as much as I have enjoyed having this very crucial and critical conversation with you. And for this platform, it's all about us to be seen, to be heard, to be human, because there's so many times that we have not been any of those things because of the color of our skin. And so this is a platform where people can be. And so with that being said, we want to thank you, Chris, for being on our show and for sharing those very traumatic events and honest and heartfelt events. And we sincerely hope that our listeners have heard you, have seen you, and know that we're human. Next week, we'll continue to discuss controversial topics about race and have conversations about personal and professional experiences with race and loss, employment, and education. Stories that need to be heard, seen, and stories that makes us human. The truth will not be silenced. To be seen, to be heard, to be human. Want to ask a question, be a guest, or subscribe to this podcast, The Truth Will Not Be Silenced? Click the link, click the show link. Thank you.